They entered the cockpit, of course, to see who was piloting the plane and who had landed it at the airport. They opened the cockpit and found a captain. But the captain was a skeleton. A human skeleton was in its place, holding onto the plane's controls.
Hi guys, how are you? Today we will talk about the strangest incident that occurred in the 20th century, and we will discover a mysterious physical phenomenon that happened in this incident. We will talk about the plane that appeared in the sky after more than 35 years of its disappearance.
Many years ago, specifically on December 4th, 1954, Flight 513 of Santiago Airlines flew at a very high altitude from the German city of Aachen with 88 passengers and 4 crew members on board, heading towards Brazil and specifically to Porto Alegre. The flight was supposed to cross the entire Atlantic Ocean and was expected to take 18 hours. However, something unexpected happened, something that only appears in science fiction movies.
The journey, instead of taking 18 hours to reach its destination, took 37 years to reach it. When the plane took off from the airport, and after only a few hours, suddenly all communication between the plane and the control tower was lost. It disappeared completely, and there was no trace of it on the radar at all, and no one heard anything about it or found any wreckage. The story of the 513 journey is considered one of the strangest stories of the 20th century and is considered one of the wonders of plane disappearance stories, which has no explanation to this day. But the most strange thing is what happened after that, more than 35 years after its disappearance. On a certain day, specifically on October 12, 1989, all the workers and employees at the airport were surprised when the plane, which had been missing for over 35 years, took off from it before disappearing. They were amazed at what they saw, because without any prior warning, notifications or radar signals, the plane landed safely at the airport. However, the question that arises in our minds is where was the plane hidden all this time for more than 35 years? And the most astonishing and mysterious question is how did the plane land? These were the questions that the workers and employees were asking each other. Immediately after the plane landed at the airport, the authorities sent a security team to examine and search it for any clues inside it. But when they approached the plane, they felt perplexed. Firstly, this plane is specifically owned by Santiago Airlines. Secondly, this airlines closed its doors in 1956, which surprised them. However, when the security group entered the plane to search it, their hearts stopped from fear at what they saw. They found 92 human skeletal remains on the plane, and these skeletal remains belong to those passengers who traveled 35 years ago. This is what they found on the plane.
Now it's time for the cockpit search. They entered the cockpit, of course, to see who was piloting the plane and who had landed it at the airport. They opened the cockpit and found a captain. But the captain was a skeleton. A human skeleton was in its place, holding onto the plane's controls.
In fact, it is the real skeletal structure of the airplane captain, whose name is Miguel Hector Gili, and he's the captain who traveled in this plane 35 years ago. The scary question is, how did he land the plane as a skeletal structure? The scene was terrifying for the security team, as if they were in a dream, but it turned out not to be the case. The plane appeared out of nowhere and landed safely, and the one who was flying it was a human, but a dead human.
Shortly after that, Irving Fisher published a detailed report on this mysterious disappearance in the Weekly World News tabloid magazine in its issue dated October 14, 1989. When other reports were published, a kind of debate and controversy began to arise about this incident. The debate was between those who believed that it may have happened as a result of something supernatural and those who completely doubted the incident. Many enthusiasts of mysterious things and puzzles tried to solve the mystery of Flight 513. The perplexing thing was not the disappearance of the plane and the passing of 35 years since its disappearance, but the way it appeared out of nowhere with a dead crew. Who was flying the plane? Were they ghosts? The Brazilian government attempted to solve the mystery and formed a research and investigation committee, granting it the necessary authority to investigate the matter. However, after a long period of research and investigation, it is strange that this committee did not issue any report on the incident and refused to provide any explanations or theories. This is also strange from the Brazilian government, as the incident occurred on its territory and was not a normal accident,
but a rare and mysterious one with dead people on board. But in the end, all Brazilian officials admitted that the plane appeared suddenly in the sky and landed successfully. This strange occurrence made people suspect that the government was hiding something and perhaps was involved. The most widely accepted hypothesis among those trying to solve the mystery of Flight 513 is the theory of wormholes. It is possible that Flight 513 entered a time hole, or specifically what is called a wormhole. This means that the plane traveled through time. In 1916, Einstein studied the fabric of the universe in his theory of general relativity and concluded that there were insane-sounding voids in space that had an incredibly strong gravitational pull. These voids are called black holes, and in 2019, his study was proven correct when the first-ever images of a black hole were captured. I mentioned the black hole because Einstein collaborated with physicist Nathan Rosen in 1935 and relied on the theory of general relativity to postulate something even more bizarre than a black hole: a wormhole. In fact, during that period, they named it the Einstein-Rosen bridge. And a wormhole is a type of bridge, tunnel, or passage that connects one point in space to another. For example, matter can enter a black hole in the Milky Way and exit through a white hole in a distant galaxy, such as Mach S0647 GD. And this wormhole is akin to a shortcut passage, and one of its characteristics is that it allows you to travel through time. Einstein states that these bridges in the space-time region allow for the contraction of distances and enable the crossing of the time barrier, and these are considered supernatural phenomena. A person interested in knowing the results of the investigation into the disappearance of the planes, named Rodrigo de Mana, a former physics professor in Porto Alegre, said that the public has the right to know everything related to this plane, and the government should inform them about it. He was not the only one who demanded this, as many people, including researchers and investigators, followed suit. Among them was a paranormal researcher named Silso Attilo, who made a sarcastic comment on this incident. He said, "The plane was being piloted by its captain, who is a skeleton, and all the crew members are skeletons too. All the passengers are also dead. The authorities do not want to discuss explanations or provide hypotheses to explain the incident. But they cannot deny that this plane defied the laws of time and space, and only God knows." Now, finally we have reached the end of today's episode. But how did the skeleton manage to safely land the plane? Write your explanations in the comments.